Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're pulling back the curtain on something that's changing consumer tech in a huge way.
But it's happening almost totally behind the scenes.
Right. It's this quiet but absolutely fundamental shift in how health technology gets regulated.
We're talking about the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, and its really nuanced effort to manage this explosion of digital health tools, especially the ones powered by AI.
This isn't just some small policy tweak, right?
No, not at all. It's a foundational restructuring. It really determines what companies can sell, how they can talk about it, and, what proof they need to back it all up.
And that is the core tension we're diving into. Because for years, the line was pretty clear. You were either, a simple step tracker.
Or you were a regulated medical device. It was one or the other.
Exactly. But that clean boundary between general wellness and medical-grade technology is just... it's blurring faster than anyone thought possible, all driven by this advanced AI interpretation.
Precisely. And the stakes here are enormous. The moment a product goes from, say, offering lifestyle tips to claiming it can diagnose or treat something,
Or even just reliably measure disease outcomes.
that's when it enters a completely different world. A world that demands real clinical evidence, quality manufacturing, and, accountability after it's on the market.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission today is to get a handle on the pressures pushing the FDA to make this change, to explore their new strategy, which is all about segmentation, and, most importantly, to arm you with the tools you need to be confidently skeptical about the next health gadget that comes along.
To start, I think you have to appreciate the balancing act that regulators are trying to perform here. The whole environment is defined by these two competing pressures.
Pulling them in opposite directions.
Totally. So pressure point one is just the incredible speed of digital health innovation. This stuff moves at Silicon Valley speed.
It promises so much. Things like earlier detection of chronic conditions, personalized support, things that just weren't possible 5 years ago. And you don't want to stifle that.
You absolutely don't want to stifle that good. But then there's pressure point two, the very real risk of harm.
Because in health, being wrong is, well, it's dangerous.
It can be really dangerous. A misleading AI metric, say, an inaccurate assessment of your heart risk, doesn't just annoy you. It can make you go seek care you don't need, or worse.
Give you false confidence so you put off seeing a real doctor.
Exactly. And that brings us to wearables. They're the perfect petri dish for this whole tension.
Right. They started out so innocently, just tracking steps, how far you ran.
Pure lifestyle. How long you slept, maybe.
But the tech just got too good to stay in that shallow end of the pool.
That's a great way to put it. Now we have FDA-cleared ECGs on our wrists, blood oxygen estimates that are trying to mimic a pulse oximeter, and very complex algorithms looking for signs of atrial fibrillation.
And the second that data gets interpreted by an algorithm to suggest a clinical implication, that's when everything changes.
That's the trigger. If you're going to tell someone their heart rhythm looks abnormal, you had better have the data to prove your alert is reliable.
So that jump from helpful lifestyle info to a clinical implication, that's what forces the regulator's hand. And it seems to play out in two main arenas.
It does. We should probably separate them to really get the ambiguity. You have the consumer side and then the professional side.
Okay, let's start with the consumer side, the wearables. The crazy thing is, the sensor technology can be identical between two devices.
Absolutely. They both might use, say, a PPG sensor, but the entire regulatory question hangs on the intended use. What does the AI do with that data?
So if one product just tells me my resting heart rate over the last week, that's wellness.
It's just raw data, presented simply. But if another product uses that same data and runs it through a deep learning model to flag a pattern that suggests, chronic stress that needs intervention,
The context just totally shifts.
it's a different product at that point. The AI's ability to interpret those deep patterns is what turns simple data into this really ambiguous, powerful insight.
So the complexity isn't the hardware, it's the inference.
Precisely. And that ambiguity is maybe even more of a minefield on the professional side.
With the clinical decision support tools,
Uh,
the CDS software.
Yeah. These are the platforms that help doctors summarize patient charts, prioritize information, manage really complex cases.
So a tool that just takes a patient's lab results and history and highlights the abnormal numbers for a doctor. That's low risk.
It's advisory. The clinician still has to look at it and use their own judgment to make the call.
But what happens when the AI is so complex? It's looking at genomic data, millions of records, And it spits out, a 78% probability that this drug will cause a bad reaction in this patient.
That's often where it crosses the line, because if that recommendation is so complex and opaque that the doctor can't really verify it on their
You
own.
can't trace the logic.
Exactly. Then the software is effectively acting like a regulated device. The doctor isn't just being informed, they're relying on a black box to make the critical decision for them.
That's such a subtle distinction, though, advising versus driving a decision. I mean, if an AI is 99% accurate, is the doctor really independently evaluating anything? Or are they just rubber stamping it?
That is the million-dollar question. And it's why the FDA realized that this binary choice device or not a device, it just wasn't working anymore.
Which brings us to the core of their new approach. This isn't about more or less regulation. It's about segmentation.
That's it. They're trying to create 3 much clearer categories or buckets for digital health. This gives developers a target to aim for and frankly gives the FDA's own teams more clarity.
So walk us through those 3 new segments.
Okay, so first you have your genuinely low-risk general wellness products. This is your calorie counter, your step tracker, an app that just encourages you to eat better.
Stuff that poses virtually no risk if it gets it wrong.
Right, so it's exempt. Then category 2 handles those professional tools we were talking about.
The ones that stay advisory.
Exactly. This is decision support that remains a non-device function. It summarizes, it prioritizes data, but it stops short of telling the doctor exactly what to do. The human is still in the driver's seat.
Okay, so the burden of the decision is still on the human, which leaves category 3.
And that's the big one. What is effectively a regulated medical device. This is for anything with explicit medical claims, a high-risk intended use, or AI that is directly telling you how to diagnose or treat a condition.
So the whole point is to make sure the high-risk stuff faces the high evidence bar, while leaving the low-risk innovation alone.
That's the goal.
But here's where it gets really tricky, because you have this collision between the AI and some very, very careful marketing language. You call it the ambiguity amplifier.
It's the perfect term for what's happening. Companies are intentionally marketing these new AI features with very non-committal words. You see insights, trends, coaching, optimizing.
All designed to sound authoritative without actually making a medical claim that would trigger regulation.
They're trying to land in that wellness or advisory category while giving you a service that feels an awful lot like medical advice. It's a kind of regulatory arbitrage.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. A company might track, say, blood flow and call the output an optimizing metabolic efficiency score. They'll never use the words diabetes risk, but if your score suddenly plummets, what are you going to think?
You're going to think something is medically wrong, and you'll probably change your behavior based on that score.
Right, and the AI is what amplifies that ambiguity. Because it's not giving you a raw number, it's giving you a sophisticated, inferred interpretation. And we, as users, grant that interpretation a kind of authority. It feels clinical even when it's not.
That feeling of authority, that seems like the root of the consumer trust gap. It's a huge side effect of all this.
It is. By creating a lighter touch path for wellness, which is good for innovation, you can unintentionally confuse people. They see a scientific-looking interface and just assume it's all been validated to the same high standard.
It's the scientific aesthetic trap. It looks like science, so it must be science.
And that is a dangerous assumption when your health is on the line. I mean, for this segmentation to work, you don't just need clear rules, you need massive education and disclosure so people know what they're looking at.
So unless it explicitly says FDA cleared for diagnosis.
You should treat it as directional, not definitive, a hint, not a diagnosis.
And this isn't just a U.S. issue, is it? The FDA's decisions have a ripple effect around the globe.
A huge one. The FDA is a gold standard. Regulators in other markets, from Asia to Africa, they look to the FDA's structure when they're making their own policies. So by creating these 3 categories, the FDA is essentially setting the product roadmap for every major tech company in the health space worldwide.
Okay, so let's bring this down to the ground level. What does this changing map actually mean for the different players here? What are the practical takeaways?
For the device makers and the software vendors, the message is really clear. Your intended use and the claims you make have to be a strategic choice from day one.
Not a marketing decision you tack on at the end.
No, it's a core engineering decision. If you want to stay in that low-risk wellness lane, your entire product experience has to reinforce that. No clinical terms, make the outputs feel like a coach, not a doctor.
But if you want to play in the medical space, category 3.
Then you need to be ready for the cost. That means a full evidence plan, formal clinical trials, a quality management system, serious cybersecurity. It's a massive commitment. But that's the price you pay for making a serious medical promise.
Okay, what about for the providers? The hospitals, the clinics? You mentioned a term from the source material, workflow contamination.
It's a perfect phrase for the risk they face. This is when these helpful-looking but unvalidated consumer AI tools start creeping into actual clinical decisions.
Like a nurse at triage looking at a stress score from a patient's own watch.
And using that to decide how urgently that patient needs to be seen, even though that watch was never approved or validated by the hospital for that use.
Wow, that's terrifying. You're completely bypassing all the hospital's internal safety checks.
That's exactly it. So organizations need really robust rules for all digital health tools. They have to decide what needs internal validation before it's allowed anywhere near a clinical pathway.
And finally, for you, the listener, what's the takeaway? We said it's about skepticism with confidence.
Yes. Remember, these AI algorithms are amazing, but they are not automatically medical devices, no matter how slick the app looks.
So the simple question you have to ask is what?
Is this feature explicitly validated for clinical use, or is it just general wellness guidance?
And if the company is being cagey, if they're using words like insights instead of diagnosis?
Assume it's wellness. Treat it as a prompt. Maybe it encourages you to exercise more or to finally make that doctor's appointment. But don't treat it as a medical finding in itself.
You know, this whole challenge really reflects a deeper truth. The simple categories that worked a decade ago, they're just broken now. AI has shattered them.
These new products just seamlessly blend sensing and inference and recommendations in a way that makes drawing lines almost impossible.
Innovation is so valuable, we need it. But especially in health, confidence without that clarity is just plain dangerous for people.
And I think the future of digital health is going to belong to the companies and the regulators who make this boundary truly understandable. Clear claims, clear evidence, clear protections for you, the user.
So here's a final thought to mull over.
If a product offers you an insight that walks and talks just like medicine, how long until its makers are legally required to offer the exact same transparency and clinical proof as a prescription drug?